that I'm so different from the others.
From birth, they said there was signs of cerebral palsy, but they could not tell of exactly what it was until when my brother started walking. When they noticed I was not catching up to the baby steps.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
This is my uncle Alex, and now they're after my mom.
Wait.
Have you killed her yet? Because her phone is not going through.
I've got absolutely no idea who you're talking about.
I'm wondering why you're still breathing.
Who are you? The victim or the perpetrator?
You know what? I'm fed up. I'm going to sell it all. Everything I've got. Then I'll disappear off the face of the earth.
Outlining the trillions why mobile money services and fuel guzzlers are the soft targets. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Business Insight. My name is O'Brien Kimani.
Welcome indeed. This is Business Insight, and of course today has been All Matters Budget. We'll be taking you through step-by-step analysis on the losers, those who have won in this budget year's allocation, and of course we'll be getting you to understand where the government intends to get this kind of amount in ensuring they run all the projects intended for this year. I am Rose Gukwo. We intend to do all that within this bulletin, but first we take a look at the day's highlights.
But before we get there, my Twitter handle is @O'Brien Kimani.
And mine is @Rose_Gakwo. You can also get us on our official Facebook page at KBC Channel 1 and on Twitter at KBC Channel 1.
And of course, there's a SMS line on top of your screen. Start talking to us.
Mr. Speaker, it's my honor to present to this August House the budget statement for financial year 2018-2019.
It is 3 billion shillings tax. Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich unveils the biggest budget ever in the country with a deficit of 562 billion shillings. Heating fuel guzzlers hide 35% import duty on high-end cars above 3,000 cc for petrol as local manufacturers are cushioned from unfair competition.
Wapunguze unga, kitu kama unga ugali, sukari, mafuta.
And it's caution for Kenyans with fears that the taxation measure enumerated in the budget could hurt the poor more. Welcome to the program, and our sign language interpreter is Susan Thuku. This is Business Insight. The government has pumped substantial financial resources to key priority areas in this year's budget. While delivering the 2018-2019 budget, Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich allocated a big portion of the 3.7 trillion shillings. Budget to education, security, health, agriculture, saying these will end the mission to create jobs, reduce poverty and share prosperity. The budget was read amid a revelation that the country's GDP grew by 5.6% last year and is expected to hit 5.8% this year. Eric Biegon reports.
The eagerly anticipated budget was finally delivered to the nation on Thursday. The budget, as read by Treasurer CS Henry Rotich, was an opportunity by the government to walk the talk by pumping substantial resources to areas that greatly affect the common citizen, despite the budget mainly focusing on the Big Four agenda. The country's security sector, just like in the previous years, was allocated a huge chunk of the 3.07 trillion shillings budget to reinforce both personnel and equipment.
I have set aside 8.9 billion for enhanced security operations, 29.8 billion for police and military modernization, 3 billion for securing our borders, and 9.2 billion for leasing of police vehicles. Mr. Speaker, to improve the welfare of our police officers, I have allocated 6.5 billion for police and prisons officers' medical insurance scheme and group life insurance for police.
Education was not to be left behind, as the government has set aside billions of shillings to finance free secondary and primary education, as well as recruitment of teachers.
To further expand access to quality basic education, we implemented a 100% transition policy in January this year. To sustain this, I have allocated 59.4 billion for free day secondary education. In addition, I have allocated 13.4 billion for free primary education program and 4 billion for examination free waiver for all class 8 and form 4 candidates and 2 billion for school feeding program. Further, to increase the teacher to student ratio, I have set aside 5 billion for the recruitment of additional teachers.
What will come as good news to the public is the attempt to find a solution to the cancer disease, which has been a major concern to the nation. Rotich has allocated money for leasing of equipment to screen cancer in public hospitals.
Mr. Speaker, in view of the increasing cases of cancer-related deaths, early screening and management is imperative. We have allocated 7 billion for leasing of computed tomography scanners equipment, which will help diagnose the disease at an early stage and cap cancer deaths. I have also allocated 400 million for the establishment of the Cancer Institute.
Another 13 billion shillings has been allocated for free maternity and leasing of medical equipment. Small-scale farmers will continue to benefit from the subsidized fertilizer program.
We will continue to improve accessibility of fertilizer and crop insurance. To this end, I have set aside 4.3 billion for subsidized fertilizer, 300 million to support crop insurance schemes in order to cushion farmers against climate-related risk, and 300 million for fall armyworm mitigation. On subsidized fertilizer, I expect the Ministry of Agriculture to reform the supply chain systems and ensure better service to farmers with the ongoing registration of farmers.
Rotich disclosed that the country's GDP grew by 5.6% last year, even as he expressed optimism that it will hit 5.8% this year. Eric Biegon reporting for Channel 1 News.
The common Mwananchi seems to be the biggest beneficiary of this year's budget after plans to increase NHIF enrollment to 25 million, expansion of the Linda Mama program to mission hospitals and private hospitals, as well as expansion of electricity supply and connection. Local manufacturers were also winners after the government increased import duty on iron, steel and paper, as well as 30% reduction in the cost of electricity. Here is Ronald O'Wheely with the details.
With the aim of supporting the manufacturing sector GDP output to 15% in 5 years from the current 8.4%, the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich has taken a protective approach aimed at ensuring locally made products are competitive.
On manufacturing, Mr. Speaker, we plan to increase the contribution of the manufacturing sector to GDP to 15% by 2022 by adding between $2 to 3 billion to our GDP. It is expected that this will increase manufacturing sector jobs by more than 800,000.
Importers of second-hand clothes and shoes have been slapped with an import duty of $5 per unit or 35%, whichever is higher, in measures to support the local textile and leather industries. Similarly, steel and iron industries will be smiling as those importing the products will pay an increase in import duty from the current 25%.
I have introduced a specific rate of duty of $110 per metric tons on particle board and $120 per metric ton on medium density fiber board.
There are plans to increase NHIF enrollment from the current 16.5 to 25 million and expand the Linda Mama program to mission hospitals and private hospitals. Small-scale farmers were also beneficiaries with the 4.3 billion shillings allocation for fertilizer subsidy, 300 million shillings for armyworm mitigation and measures to reduce post-harvest losses.
I propose to exempt from VAT materials for the construction of grain storage facilities in order to support safe storage of foods and ensure sustainable food security in the country. In this budget, Mr. Speaker, I propose to expand this exemption to include equipments used in the construction of the facilities in order to lower the cost of post-harvest storage.
Local manufacturers were also winners after the government increased import duty on iron, steel and paper, as well as a 30% reduction in the cost of power.
Mr. Speaker, in order to mitigate the cost of production, I propose to amend the income tax to provide a deduction of 30% of the total electricity bill by manufacturers from corporate profits, in addition to normal deductions subject to the conditions to be set by the Ministry of Energy.
Vegetable oil importers will also pay a duty of $500 per metric tons or 35%, whichever is higher. For Business Insight, I'm Ronald Willie.
This year's budget seems to have targeted both the rich and the poor, with review of taxes affecting both. While presenting this year's budget, Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich increased a duty on mobile money transfer services from 10 to 12%, which could mainly affect those relying on mobile money. In addition, users of second-hand clothes and shoes who are considered poor should expect to pay more following an increase on duty. As Samson Kitavi reports, the rich who mainly import fuel guzzlers have been slapped with a higher import duty of 30%, up from the current 20% for second-hand vehicles with an engine capacity of more than 2,500 cc.
National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich is now banking on the custom and excise duty to partly finance the ambitious 3.07 trillion shillings 2018-2019 budget.
The tax proposals that I am submitting through the 2018 finance bill are designed to generate an additional 27.5 billion Kenya shillings in tax revenue for financial year 2018-2019.
Those likely to feel the heat of the budget proposal are those who make electronic money transfer of over 500,000 shillings in banks, who will be charged 0.05% in excise duty. Also not spared are mobile money service users.
In addition, I have increased excise duty fee charged on money transfer services by cellular phone service providers from 10% to 12%.
Dealers and customers of imported second-hand clothes and shoes are also among losers after the Cabinet Secretary increased import duty from 25 to 35%.
In order to encourage local production and create jobs for our youth in the sector, I have introduced a specific rate of import duty of $5 per unit or 35%, whichever is higher. This should guard against undervaluation.
Importers of iron and steel, paper products and cheap timber are not spared either. The custom duty on the products have been increased to a maximum of 35%.
In order to protect the local iron and steel industries, I have increased the rate of import duty from 25% to 35% in a wide range of steel and iron products which are available in the region. To protect manufacturers of these products, I have increased the rate of import duty from 25% to 35% on some paper and paperboard produced in the region.
This year's budget is likely to hit hard importers and dealers of fuel guzzlers after the excise duty was increased from 20 to 30%.
To ensure progressivity, which is a cardinal principle of taxation, I propose to increase excise duty from 20% to 30% on private passenger motor vehicles whose engine capacity exceeds 2,500 cc for diesel and 300,000 cc for petrol-powered vehicles.
The gambling and betting businesses were also on the chopping board of Rotich's budget, with penalties and interest on the late payment of gaming tax. The Cabinet Secretary, however, made a quick about turn on the proposed 35% on income tax for high-income earners with a monthly income of at least 750,000 shillings after it became unpopular.
Members of the public raised concern on this proposal and were of the view that the higher rates are not appropriate at this time. We have considered this concern and resolved to revert to the rates contained in the current income tax.
Samson Kitavi, Channel 1 News.
About 460 billion shillings has been earmarked for financing the Big Four agenda of manufacturing, food security, affordable housing and universal healthcare. As Judy the Caller reports, this will also involve enabler sectors such as security, infrastructure, flood control and water harvesting, poverty reduction, use of ICT and a transfer of county government.
The Big Four agenda of manufacturing, food security, affordable housing and universal health care has taken up in excess of 460 billion shillings in the 2018-2019 fiscal budget.
Given the competing needs of our limited resources, we have had to make tough choices. We have curtailed resources going to low priority areas following the zero-based budgeting approach that we have adopted. This has enabled us to redirect these savings towards the Big Four and their enablers, while continuing with proper expenditures in health, education, and protecting the vulnerable.
While this is the case, the agriculture sector, that is the main anchor towards realizing food security and by extension, manufacturing, will take the lion's share of the allocation.
Mr. Speaker, in order to reduce our vulnerability to drought and bring additional land under crop production, I have allocated a total of 8.5 billion for ongoing irrigation projects in Bur and Mwea, national expanded irrigation programs, and smallholder irrigation programs Galana, Kulalu, Turkana, and micro irrigation in schools.
The budget proposal, which is themed creating jobs, transforming lives, and sharing prosperity through the Big Four agenda, CS Rotich allocated 2.4 billion shillings to support value addition and raise the manufacturing sector's share so as to realize a GDP growth of 15% by 2022. Another 20.25 billion shillings will be spent on enhancing food and nutrition security to all Kenyans by 2022.
On subsidized fertilizer, I expect the Ministry of Agriculture to reform the supply chain systems and ensure better service to farmers with the ongoing registration of farmers.
44.6 billion shillings for providing universal health coverage to guarantee quality and affordable health care to all Kenyans.
We have provided a total of 13.7 billion to further support the free maternal health care program and leasing of medical equipment.
and 6.5 billion shillings for the provision of affordable and decent housing for all Kenyans. However, this will depend on other enabler sectors, including security, infrastructure, flood control and water harvesting, poverty reduction, leveraging on information, communication technology, and a transfer to county governments of over 340 billion shillings. Judith Akolo, The Business Defined.
Well, that story by Judith Akolo now takes us to a very fast break. But of course, in studio already, Brian Kimani is now joined by an expert who will also be helping us delve deeper into the matter of budget. O'Brien, I see you ready.
Well, here we are, of course, ready with John Ndua. He's a senior investment analyst from site, and of course, he'll be helping us to break down the figures and, of course, to help us make the sense out of whatever came out of Parliament today. And, of course, we will be looking at those figures clearly and critically as well. So you don't need to go anywhere. Let me ask you this, by the way, because I know you are watching this. What aspect of whatever came out of Parliament that impressed you most?
Personally? Well, O'Brien Kimani, what we need to understand is that, you know, in Parliament, there's so much effort going towards developing the country. And even away from Parliament, President Uhuru Kenyatta later would talk and even call for a lifestyle audit for public officers. And if only all these matters, with this kind of a budget and with the kind of stringent measures that have been proposed to ensure that corruption is, you know, nabbed right from the bud, then this country would be headed for greatness economically and, of course, all rounded.
Well, thank you so very much indeed. And you need to stay right here because we'll be diving deeper into those issues. So you better stay right here.
All right, then, O'Brien Kimani right there, quite ready to help us understand this matter better. So we take a very short break. Remember, you can always leave us with your questions, concerns, and probably your interpretation, understanding pertaining this topic tonight right on our SMS line. It's on your screens, 22162. Once again, 22162. Kindly do leave that with us. We'll be starting to be sampling it within this bulletin. That break now.
The Easy Banking app is your bank anywhere, anytime. Everything you do at the bank is on Easy Banking app. You can use the app to send money, pay bills, buy and pay for goods and services, access easy loans, check the status of your account, save for future goals, and so much more. And now you can enjoy an even better banking experience with the just updated Easy Banking app. Loaded with a great suite of powerful features, so you're always in control of your banking lifestyle wherever you are. Download the Easy Banking app from Google Play Store or App Store and link your Equity Bank account. If you do not have an Equity Bank account, open one hapo from the app. Easy Banking. Experience convenience in life.
Into it. Happy birthday. What am I doing? Today it's gonna be okay, cause we're celebrating your birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Sabes que ya llevo un rato mirándote. Tengo que bailar.
Tukukaribisha kwa moyo mkunjufu hapa katika mahanja. Ni rock kwa nataka bio DJ nicheze hiyo kusimama na magoti, alafu unawekelea kidogo. Kama kidogo.
Shika magoti.
Usikohoe.
How you doing it?
Mahanja mislit. Shirikisha zile kwa tuonekana baya.
Kuna mambo mama. Kuna mambo
Umewahi sikia kuna mtu anasema dadake Abdullah mabeba. Nilikuwa kifanya thank you. Nilikuwa kifanya thank you kujibeba sura. Ni vile na kujanga hapa mnanitengeneza kidogo makeup.
Welcome back and thank you so much for your company this far. And news just reaching us now is that the chairperson of the Electoral Commission in the country, this is Wafula Chebukati, once again has sent the Chief Executive Officer Ezra Chiloba packing again. Of course, this is amid the ongoing audit in these public institutions. And remember, earlier the Employment and the Labour Relations Court had temporarily suspended the decision by the Independent Election and Boundaries Commission to send the CEO, this is Ezra Chiloba, on campus relief to pave way for the eternal audit. And Justice Stephen Radido ruled that Chiloba's suspension was unfair and did not comply with the IEBC Act. Of course, we'll be revisiting that story. But of course, despite this ruling earlier on by the Labour Relations Court, what we are receiving right now, all the latest news is that the chairperson has once again sent the CEO packing. We'll be getting details on that and we'll be certain to ensure that you have that latest update. Meanwhile, enhancing the tourism sector still remains key for the country, with the National Treasury allocating 1 billion shillings to the sector that is yet to fully recover. Though the figure in the 2018-2019 financial year is lower than the allocation in the current financial year, the funds are expected to enhance marketing activities that will bring in more tourists in the country, as well as enhance tourism revenue. Rotich also proposed revision of duty on motor cars, sightseeing buses and overland trucks imported by licensed tour operators.
In his budget speech presented in Parliament today, National Treasury CS Henry Rotich noted that strategies and incentives to revive Kenya's tourism sector are bearing fruits. Last year, the country recorded a 20.3% growth to post earnings of 120 billion shillings. In the 2018-2019 financial year, the sector has been allocated 1 billion shillings for marketing and promotion of tourism activities, a reduction from 2.7 billion shillings the sector got in the current financial year. Out of this, 340 million shillings will be for sustaining new markets and sitting booths, 380 million shillings for capital lending to hoteliers, and 325 million for restoration of Fort Jesus. Rotich also proposed remission of duty on motor cars, sightseeing buses and overland trucks imported by licensed tour operators.
Currently, the law provides for exemptions of duty for some selected vehicles for the transport of tourism. To boost tourism and provide a platform to market our national brand worldwide, the exemption will now be expanded to include sightseeing buses and overland trucks imported by licensed tour operators.
To support mining activities and geophysical mapping of the country's minerals, 509 million shillings and 500 million shillings was allocated respectively. Rotich also proposed a repeal of Section 33B of the Banking Amendment Act on the capping of interest rates to enable banks and other lenders to provide more credit to borrowers.
The interest rate ceiling has contributed to the slow growth in credit to the private sector and especially to the micro, small and medium enterprise in the agricultural and trade sectors.
In order to enhance access to affordable credit to SMEs regarded as high-risk borrowers, the government plans to introduce a national credit guarantee scheme. Caroline Jenga reporting for Business Insights.
Well, there we are, and still our focus is on matters budget. But of course, like I told you just earlier on, is that news just in is that the chairperson of the Electoral Commission in the country, this is Wafula Chebukati, has once again suspended the CEO. This is Ezra Chiloba, and of course, the reason cited right there is that it's to allow the completion of the comprehensive audit of all major procurements relating to the 2017 general and fresh presidential elections. Then, of course, remember this following a directive that was issued for all public procurement officers to step aside and probably allow for fresh vetting. Well, we'll be certain to keep you updated on this matter. But in the meantime, focus today is on matters budget. I'll be handing you over now to O'Brien Kimani to take it away. O'Brien.
Well, thank you so much indeed, Gakuo. The Treasury is calling this budget poor and focused on accelerating the Big Four plan delivery. The question is it workable? Is it achievable? Is it feasible? That question, I may not have the answers, but we're joined by John K. Dua. He's a senior investment analyst at Saiton. He's coming on board to help us answer some of these questions and, of course, help understand some of the issues that may sound complicated for you and for me. John, thank you so very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
I want to find out from you, first of all, what were your expectations and were they met?
Yes, they were met because we all expected an expansionary budget. So the 2.5 trillion budget is definitely one. And given that you're a developing economy, it's something that we expected. But if you look at the budget, you need to look at how it's funded. And it's funded through either debt or the revenue collection. They're increasing the revenue collection, reducing the debt, which is a good thing, because if you look at what the IMF was saying about our debt sustainability, it's something that we need to look at if you are going to be sustainable in the future. So it's a good thing. However, we have increased the revenue collection, which is basically tax, by about 14% to about 1.9 trillion Kenyan shillings. The last year's budget was about 1.6 trillion, of which you have collected about 66% of it. So is it achievable? The government is putting a lot of measures, increasing the tax bracket, increasing taxes on imports, increasing the taxes on vehicles, increasing tax on many other things. However, they have put also these measures of improving the REC system, of tracking cargo systems. They've also improved the iTax system. However, we are not seeing it trickling down to the amount of money they are collecting. So the question we ask, is it really sustainable, or we'll find ourselves borrowing more money to fund this budget?
Of course, there has been a lot of argument in the past that if Kenya Revenue Authority was to become a little bit more efficient and be able to seal some of the evasion loopholes, they are even in a position to collect about 3 trillion shillings, in any year. And we have seen a lot of, excuse me, we have seen a lot of effort, by both the Kenya Revenue Authority and the National Treasury to try and close some of those loopholes. And they have, for example, they have lost a multi-agency, a multi-sector agency, to deal with the issues of counterfeit and contraband goods. And they are also hoping that these are some of the measures that they are putting in place to ensure that they collect more. How much do you think KRA is likely to collect?
If they are able to achieve that, they can collect even the budget amount. However, we use precedents to see whether they are doing it, because even last year they had the willpower, and they wanted to do this, but they are failing. Why are they failing? Because maybe there are people in the government themselves who are conflicted, I must say. If you look at our tax bracket, the people who are actually taxed is about 40%. 60% is informal sector. Yes, they're trying to tax the Mtumba industry. However, they have failed to really go in and delve even in the 40% that are really being taxed. So by tightening or putting the systems in a place where they can actually tax efficiently, even those people in formal employment, then they pave the way so that they can go to the informal sector. But now they're going into informal sector without even tightening the noose on the formal sector. So I believe there's the willpower, and the government is trying its best to improve revenue collection, but it also needs to be aggressive in the sense that every year the budget is expansionary, increasing by on average 7%. However, we always below the revenue collection each
year. If you ask the Kenya Revenue Authority mandarins, they will tell you that last year was a very tough operating environment. We had a lot of uncertainty because of the elections. At the beginning of last year, there was some major drought that affected food production. And then the first quarter of 2017, of course there was, of 2018, there was also some tension because of the elections, and then came the floods. So they will cite those as some of the challenges that they have been facing, with collection. But now they're saying that, going forward, we do not foresee any political uncertainty going forward because of the handshakes and handshakes. That is somehow good. And so we are winning back investors' confidence. And so they are basing that as part of their argument to collect more this year. Is it grounded on formidable ground?
It is a fair point. Last year was a tough economic environment, given the elections, the drought, the floods. So it is a fair point that maybe the amount of money to be collected was really not there. However, this has been a story for the past 5 years, and last year was just a unique year. So this year, if they put in the effort, they can do it. However, they have not done it before. But the budget says that they feel like they can do it. However, we have not seen measures put in place for them to collect. However, they're increasing the tax bracket, maybe they will collect the money. However, you can cite tough economic conditions. However, you are blowing your recurrent budget. So if it's a tough economic environment, then why are you spending more on recurrent expenditure? Development expenditure is lower. Absorption rate is about 70%. You are borrowing expensive money from the global markets, and you are not even deploying it in the economy. So there's a disconnect to what they're saying. However, I believe that this year, if there is the willpower, and if you can look at the rhetoric coming from the president, he really wants to fight corruption and keep Kenya going. So if they're able to collect this money and channel it into development expenditure, then I believe it's a year to watch.
Of course, the president has been talking tough, about corruption. So he has the wheels. The question is, how much are we likely to succeed going forward? Let's come to taxation measures, outlined today. Targeting mobile money services and fuel guzzlers. Annually we have seen, mobile money services, going up. Currently, I think they are doing about 3 trillion shillings transactions. Raising excise duty from 10 to 12%. How much money are they likely to get out of that?
You see, in Kenya, mobile money is the most advanced in the world. We transact more on the mobile than we even do on any other means. So with this, they can collect a vast amount of money. Because if you look at, if I can give a case of Safaricom, Safaricom last year made a profit of about 50 billion, of which about 50% was from M-Pesa transactions. So just imagine tapping that. It's a vast market. However, most of the people in Kenya rely on mobile money to do their business. So yes, you can collect a lot of money, but what does it mean for the common person who's reliant on mobile money? So I think it's a two-way issue in the sense that the government can get a lot of money from it. If you talk about 3 trillion in transactional value, so just imagine tapping even 10% of that. It's a lot of money.
That's 300 billion shillings.
Yeah, of free money just like that. Yeah, no hassle, and it's via mobile. You can tap it, it's efficient, and you can track it.
So there is something that is not yet clear. So is the government planning to tax money that is being transacted or revenue that is being generated from the transactions?
They already tax the revenue generated from the transactions because it's revenue to a particular company, so it's corporate tax.
Yes.
So they definitely tax that. So it's tax on the money being transmitted.
money being transmitted. So the 3 trillion shillings we are talking about.
Exactly.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Out of there.
Exactly. And that's why the tax is not that crazy as we see like VAT 16 or those, or excise duty 20%, because it's a lot of money. However, it will, the reason why people transact on mobile money is because it's convenient and cheaper to do so. Yeah. So if you increase a cost on it, maybe they'll move to other means of transactions. However, even Kenya right now is about 90% cash transaction. So it tells you the vast amount of place you can actually tax. So I believe the government is looking for easier ways of getting money rather than innovating around ways in which they can get sustainable money. Because if only that 3 trillion being transacted consists of 10% of the amount of cash in circulation in the economy, why don't they think about ways of taxing the 90%?
The 90%?
Yeah.
In your own opinion, was it a wise decision, to target mobile transactions?
In my opinion, it was an easy decision to make because it's just there in your face. So it's easier to track that. However, I don't believe there was much thought towards it because even though mobile money is huge in Kenya, there's still a vast amount of untapped places you can think of. So going for the easier option is a bit lazy, I will say. However, the government needs to take what they can at the moment because we are a growing economy. In the background, they can be thinking of other ways. However, we have a debt servicing we have to do. We have to develop our county, we have to develop the economy. So they take what they get.
What about fuel guzzlers? 2,000 cc's, 2,500 cc's and above.
And what percentage of that is on our roads? It's insignificant. It is a good thing. You see, it is a good thing to tax the fuel guzzlers, to even tax people earning over 750,000. It sends a clear message as if that if you spend more, you get taxed more. However, it's such a small percentage of the economy that I don't think it will trickle down to what the budget size is suggesting. Because you're increasing revenue from 1.6 billion to 1.9 billion. Will that really cover the deficit? I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Let's talk about budget deficit.
Yeah.
Which has always been a thorny issue when it comes to their midterm target is 6%, right?
Yeah.
Their long-term target is 3.5%. Is it achievable when you look at the amount of revenue that we are collecting vis-a-vis, our recurrent expenditure?
It is achievable because what they're projecting for next year is about 5.7, which is already in their midterm target. So I believe it's achievable. However, it all boils down to how you structure the budget because it's 2.5. You're saying 1.9 million coming from taxation. The rest is coming from borrowing. You see, you can always allocate like that because it's just a budget. However, in real terms, are you going to achieve it in future? In the medium term, I believe they can achieve 6%. We're not far off from that. We're actually in that range. However, for the long term of 3% goes down now to where they're spending their money on. They're spending most of their money on recurrent and not development. Exactly. And they're blowing their budget on recurrent and underperforming on development. If they fix that and we see more allocation towards development and less on recurrent and spending less on recurrent and absorbing more on development, then it will be achievable. However, we look at trends for the past 5, the past 10, past 20 years. Every budget reading, they have always had a medium-term target. Have they able to meet it? Have they been able to meet it? No, they have not. However, it should not be discouraging and should not make the government be ambitious. They should always put measures in place and visible measures in order to do that. However, if using track record, they haven't. But going forward, that's what they need to do.
Tell me this, reducing the development vote to 660 billion Kenya shillings, while the recurrent expenditure is it 1.2 trillion?
1.2 trillion.
1.2 trillion shillings, almost double what we are spending on development. Then we claim that we are cutting down on our deficit. Are we fooling ourselves? Are we going to develop at the end of the day?
It's a tricky subject because it's how you fund it. It's how you fund it that depicts the budget deficit. You see, our budget is recurrent and development. The budget deficit is what we are lacking to fund all of it. Even if recurrent was 100% and development 0%, the budget deficit will still be at 5.7.
But the beauty of it is that, I mean, we can decide to do away with development and remain with recurrent and manage to fund it, from our revenues.
Yeah, we can. However, we are ambitious on both fronts. We want to do more development, and if you do more development and the government has an administrative role, so recurrent will always increase. However, it's increasing at a higher rate than development. So this begs a question as to which aspect of recurrent expenditure are we actually spending most on? Is it really administrative, or is it really money down the drain? Because you see, administrative is not money down the drain because it's going to pay salaries or people actually implementing those developments. However, if it's things like allowances, these small things they enjoy, then there's an issue.
I mean, we'll be taking a short break because I want you to have a sip of your water. You'll be telling us, I mean, why do we underperform when it's come to funds absorption on development, yet we overperform on recurrent expenditure by an average of 107%? You'll be answering that question. Look, here we're in the company of John Dua. He's a senior investment analyst. We're having a very good and interesting conversation here. I told you can become part of this conversation. I'm very sure you listened because we gave you our SMS line and of course our Twitter handle. Dua, do you have a Twitter handle?
No.
Jesus, you're kidding me. All right, let me give you mine. It's at O'Brien Kimani. Send me your questions, your thoughts, and of course, you might be the lucky person. I'm likely to read some of your thoughts right here on the KBC channel. And remember, we are coming to you live from Broadcasting House. This is Business Insight. And let's now hand you over back to Rose Gakuo.
Well, thank you so much, Brian Kimani. That is a comprehensive interview right there. Of course, remember, keep sharing your sentiments. It's rather with us on our social media platforms. Let's proceed. An unusual delay characterized the budget presentation Thursday afternoon as legislators patiently waited for the arrival of the man of the moment, his Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, Henry Rotich. For the first time in the country's budget presentation history, the CS did not speak to the media as he made his way to Parliament minutes past 3 p.m. This is the color story from today's proceedings.
As early as 1 p.m., journalists had already set up the equipment at the entrance of Treasury buildings in anticipation of the traditional photo session. Security teams on standby. Members of the public milled around hoping to catch a glimpse of the Cabinet Secretary and his briefcase. And when he marched a few minutes after 3 p.m., accompanied by Principal Secretary Kamau Duge and other Treasury officials, it was all smiles. Unlike in past budget presentation occasions, Rotich did not brief members of the press as he boarded his official car to Parliament buildings. The convoy briskly made its way to Parliament under tight security. At Parliament buildings, Rotich was received by the speakers of the two houses of Parliament, Justin Muturi and Ken Lusaka. Outside Parliament, mainstream media ensured Kenyans did not miss a moment of the more than 3 trillion shillings budget estimate, which the CS says was carefully prepared in the face of difficult choices.
Members of Parliament, drawn from across the political divide, have mixed reactions regarding this year's budget. While some view the budget as instrumental in achieving development goals, others have raised concern that the tax proposals introduced today are not conducive for the ordinary Kenyans. Our reporter Kevin Washira now samples some of the views from elected leaders.
Kwa mara ya kwanza hapa Kenya tumeona bajeti ambayo haina huruma kabisa. Maana tumeona zile bidhaa muhimu ama zile huduma muhimu ambazo yule mtu wa chini anaweza kupata zimeweza kuwekwa ushuru wa juu zaidi. Kwa mfano ukiweka ushuru kwa mafuta ya taa, na unajua vizuri ni juzi tu ambako masuala ya makaa, mambo ya kuni, ukataji wa miti ulipigwa marufuku hapa Kenya. Sasa ukiweka ushuru mkuu wa hali ya juu kwa mafuta ya taa ni kumaanisha unakanyaga ule wa chini zaidi.
Ukiongeza bei ya mafuta tayari inaathiri. Hiyo inamaanisha kwamba bei ya chakula itaenda juu, bei ya usafiri itaenda juu. Kwa hivyo maoni yangu ni kwamba bajeti hii haikuangalia mtu kawaida. Imeangalia wale watu wafanya biashara kidogo. Kwa hivyo haitamsaidia yule mwananchi wa kawaida. Na hakuna nchi ulimwengu mzima ambayo inaweza kuendelea kiuchumi kama kodi iko juu zaidi.
Matarajio ile ambayo tulikuwa nayo haijakuwa. Budget ya leo sio budget ambayo inafurahisha kusema ukweli. Vitu mingi ambayo tulikuwa tunatarajia kama bei ya vitu kama mafuta, kama unga, mafuta taa, vitu ya kawaida kwa mwananchi huko nyumbani, watu ya mapato ya chini haijazingatiwa hata kidogo.
Hii bajeti haijafurahisha sisi. Na hii bajeti sio ya maskini, sio ya kusaidia maskini. Ni ya kuwapea mizigo zaidi, kuongezea wananchi mizigo. Kwa mfano, mwananchi wa kawaida sasa anatumia mafuta taa kwa kupika, kwa mwangaza, sababu hakuna makaa. Sababu unajua mambo ya makaa imesimamishwa Kenya. Alafu naongeza ushuru ifanane na ya mafuta kama petroli ama zingine. Sasa kusema kweli umesaidia mwananchi ama umemuumiza.
Taxation on Kenyans has increased. The burden on tax is now higher, and everyone, including the common mwananchi, is going to be affected by that taxation. In as much as he has rejected the offer to increase direct taxation on salaries and etc., what he has done is to increase indirect taxation.
In my view, that's the only way. We must live by what we collect. We must collect so we can spend. Although some areas, I think to me it was a bit to the extreme, but generally to me the budget was is good.
The proposed 2018-2019 budget has elicited mixed reactions among Kenyans. Some welcomed the prioritizing of the Big Four agenda and measures to fight poverty, while others said the budgetary allocations failed to meet their expectations on lowering the cost of living. Our reporter Regina Manyara-Gitao samples some of the views.
Did Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich, his proposed budget of 2018-2019 meet Wanjiko's expectations?
Gali angeonelea kwamba wangepunguzia hata bei na ile pesa ambazo zinapotea. Pesa ziko nyingi katika Kenya, lakini zinaenda katika mfuko yenye imetoboka.
Serikali iweze kushughulikia mambo ya ufisadi, kwa sababu pesa haziwezi tolewa, kila sana zinatumika vibaya, zinaharibiwa na wachache.
Tafuta pesa kutoka kwa watu wa chini. So wanastahili kutafuta pesa kwa watu wako juu kwa njia nyingine. Sio mwananchi wa kawaida anaamka asubuhi, ako kazi, anatafuta, anauza ndizi yake kidogo, anatoa shilingi 5, tena serikali inataka hiyo shilingi 5 pia yote.
While the 2018-2019 proposed budget seems to focus on the Big Four agenda, Common Mwananchi Wanjiko is concerned that it does not take into consideration her needs. Regina Manyara-Gitao reporting for Channel 1 News.
All eyes were fixated on Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich as he delivered the budget, with Kenyans hoping he will offer a solution to tame the rising cost of living. It was a hope born out of desperation to meet their basic needs and have something left over for savings and investment. But just what is the reality for a majority of Kenyans who live from hand to mouth. Our reporter Caroline Kamau breaks down a monthly budget for an average Kenyan family of 5 and tells you why ugali remains the food of choice for the majority of Kenyans.
Now, a few years ago, with 1,000 shillings in a supermarket such as this one, you would be able to fill up your shopping basket with food. What that meant is more food for your family within the month. However, today, in 2018, with 1,000 shillings, all you can buy is 4 items. What I have here is 1 packet of unga for your ugali, 1 packet of unga for your chapati, 1 jerrycan of cooking oil, 3 liters, and a packet of rice. That costs you 1,200 shillings for just 4 items, making it that much more difficult for Kenyan families to put food on the table. This is an estimate of what an average Kenyan family of 5 consume on food and non-food items on a monthly basis. 6 packets of 2 kg maize flour, 6 packets of 2 kg wheat flour, 3 liters of cooking oil, 4 kilograms of sugar, 8 kilograms of rice, 4 kilograms of meat, 4 kilograms of green grams, monthly vegetables, among others. In total, this amounts to approximately 21,780 shillings. It is important to note this budget is not inclusive of rent, transport or school fees. A survey by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics in 2015 showed that more than half of formal sector workers earn between 20,000 to 49,000 shillings, an income that rarely improves, this greatly eroding their purchasing power. This begs the question, is the budget friendly to the so-called Wanjiko? Meet the Masharias. They followed the budget reading keenly, but for them the budget did not provide solid solutions.
Najua economically our country is growing, lakini sisi kama wananchi hatuoni any impact, kwa sababu tukienda kwa maduka vitu inaenda juu zote. A plate of food on your table ni shida kabisa kwa mwananchi wa kawaida.
Masharia further says the mandatory contribution to NHIF further depletes the family resources, but its effects are yet to be felt.
Kama ni hizo mahospitali, ukienda hospitali wewe ni mgonjwa, umeshida kwa rain mpaka jioni, ukitibiwa unaambiwa hii dawa nenda ukanunue pale fulani.
It is a script replayed at Royro's Gitambaya estate. Traders pay an annual tax of 12,000 shillings. However, they say the value for the tax is not visible, wondering why the government was imposing taxes on the informal sector.
Kitu tu tunaona ni kusikia watu wameimba pesa. Kama hizo za NYS, kama hizo za NCBD, kama hizi zingine za Kenya Pipeline, pali popote ukienda kwa sekta zote za serikali kuna hiyo corruption kila pahali. Na nafikiria hiyo pesa, hiyo corruption kama ingekuwa inatumika na ile njia inafaa, labda hizo barabara tuna complain juu yake, hiyo mashule, hiyo mahospitali, kama ingekuwa inarudi hivyo ingekuwa inasaidia.
For Josephine Masharia, the ordinary Kenyan's priority is putting food on the table, and they had hoped for answers to feed their family.
Siku hizi nimesikia ati kama na kule Turkana mafuta kumekuwa na petro. Watufikiri sana vile vitu ya kutumia nyumbani itakuwa imerekebishwa bei. Kama akiwa ni kitu kama gas, kama kitu kama ni mafuta, iwe bei ni chini kabisa, kwa sababu watu wa chini kabisa wanaumia.
As the budget reading process ended, they were left with more questions than answers on how to fend for their families. Caroline Kamau reporting for Channel 1 Nizar.
Well, of course, that story by Caroline Kamau puts into perspective the life of the ordinary Kenyan. And this is one of the conversations that we highlight tonight on our interview on Business Insight with O'Brien Kimani and our experts. And of course, O'Brien Kimani will be joining us for the second part of tonight's interview. But before that, President Uhuru Kenyatta now says all public servants, including himself, will be subjected to lifestyle audits as the country tightens its its news on corruption. The president, who was speaking when he opened the 10-kilometer Miritini Mwache Kipevu Dongo Kundu bypass, said the war against corruption should not be politicized. The bypass is expected to end congestion to SGR station in Miritini and connect Mombasa Island to Kwale mainland.
Tutaanza sasa ile ambayo inaitwa lifestyle audit ya maofisa wote wa serikali. Ndio wewe tunakuona, haya basi, hii nyumba, pesa, hii mshahara ndio hii ulinunua namna gani? Hii ulinunua namna gani? Hii gari ambayo unapeleka, na usijaribu kuweka kwa jina ya bibi yako au mtoto yako, tutajua ni yako, ulitoa wapi? Hii mambo ya watu kuiba mali ya Wakenya, haki ya Mungu itaisha katika taifa la Kenya.
Welcome back. You're watching Business Insights. We are live and we are on air. And we are coming to you from Broadcasting House. We've been having this discussion, reflecting upon the budget speech of Henry Rotich. And of course, we are in great company of John Ndua. He's a senior investment analyst at Saiton. And I told you, my Twitter handle is @O'Brien Kimani, @KBC Channel 1. And of course, our SMS line is on your screen right now, and we'll welcome your views, your questions, and of course your compliments using those platforms. John, before we went on air, we went for break. I was asking you, when you look at the measures that the National Treasury, has outlined, to collect more resources in the next financial year, do you think they are workable?
Realistically, I think at the moment, at the place where we are in terms of the level of the reforms, I don't believe it's workable. However, I believe we'll be at a better place than last year. Given the fact
to collect more.
To collect more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, given the fact that now it's not so challenging, so the elections are over, the drought is over, and we can see that the government is also putting in place these measures to collect more by reducing even the debt reliance. Mm-hmm. So I believe we'll be at a better place. However, the 1.9 trillion is still ambitious, and I believe maybe we can meet about 70% of that, 70 to 80% of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another interesting proposal, that caught the eyes of many is the amendment to the Employers Act in an effort to raise resources to put up affordable homes, whereby employers are expected to contribute about 7.05% and employees 0.5% of their gross salary to go towards raising resources to help put up, affordable homes. Do you think employers are likely to take this lying low?
I believe employers will actually take this well, because it's a really good initiative. Mm-hmm. If you look at Kenya in terms of housing deficit, we have 200,000 annually and 1 million currently. So that tells you that there's a need for affordable housing. Even it's something personal even to me and also maybe to you. The rent we pay is really, really, really high, because it's mostly a third of your salary, mostly. So, and even at Saiton, what we normally do is that we leave allocation for affordable housing, because we know there's a really big need in this country. So as employers, I believe that it's an initiative that will they will take well.
Where will they get this money from?
They'll just take it from the bottom line, because it's going to a sustainable environment where people have decent housing. And if people have decent housing and affordable housing, so we won't demand more salaries also. So it's something in the long run that will help the employer too.
So of course, if they are getting this money from their bottom line, it means that it's going to, it's going to eat into their profit margins.
Yes, but
do you expect them to smile?
not to smile, but to look at the future and see what is going to. Because if the future of the country is not sustainable, even the future of the employer is not sustainable. If you're in a country where people can't afford basic affordable housing, then what country are you trying to earn these billions from? You see? So I believe as an employer, you want to...
Do you anticipate some legal battles going forward between the government and the employers?
On this particular issue, no. Because I believe it's something that is actually sustainable. I believe maybe if there was going to be any legal, it's going to be proper visibility on the allocation on where it's going to. Yeah, because you can, as an employee, you don't want to churn out 7.5%, and it's not going to the initiative that was promised.
Tell me something about, forming a mega bank in the name of Kenya Development Bank. Do you think, or do you see, like the government has the management muscle to run such a behemoth of a bank?
Currently, no, but they'll build capacity. So I believe the government have the resources enough to build capacity to run this bank. And if you look at...
Is it advisable, for a government to manage a bank?
Yes, it is advisable. Because if you look at
the Kenya that we live today,
yes, it's mostly advisable for the government itself to manage, not government to afford an entity to manage. If the government itself is managing, then it's something that can work, because the government manages CBK, and the CBK is actually doing quite well. It's one of the most well-run institutions in the country.
But CBK is not in the business of making money. It's just in the business of depositing money.
Either way, it's as an institution. If you look at government-run institution, CBK is actually performing well, and they run most of the government's money. So you can look, if a government is running a bank towards an initiative that is part of its core agenda, then it's something that's advisable.
Would you say Industrial Development Bank, which is 100% owned by Treasury, is well managed?
I will say maybe not, but the question was if the government has capabilities to do so. They do. They do.
They do.
They do. Yeah.
So you expect, or in your judgment, and we are not casting aspersions here. We're just trying to widen our thought network. You believe that the government has the capacity to manage a bank the size of Kenya Development Bank by merging the three institutions they are talking about?
Yes.
Good. Time, of course, will tell, and of course, at some point, probably, maybe we'll have you back here, so that we can reflect on this one. Tell me this, 800 million shillings for generation of Nairobi River, 400 million shillings for Cancer Institute.
Yeah, it's quite alarming, and it casts a picture on where our priorities are really. Because for Nairobi River, if it was on my opinion, I believe it's a county initiative and not a national government initiative, because the national government has a wider net of where it needs to allocate the money, and Nairobi River should not be at the top of its agenda. And if you compare the two, cancer is a national disaster, even declared recently. Nairobi River is not. And you allocate double to Nairobi River than cancer treatment, then it's alarming, and it should not be happening in this day and age.
And tell me this, when you look at the deliberations that have been going on in the last couple of months, to repeal the banking amendment law, do you think this is a welcome move?
It is a welcome move. If you look, it was more a political move than it was an economic move, if I'm to be asked.
But it is very popular, especially with the members of parliament.
Very popular.
It's a populist move.
Yeah. However, look at what it has done. It's supposed to help the common mwananchi. Credit has gone down to 2% from 18%. They're still not getting the money. And in fact, it's even way harder to get money now. Who's getting more money? It's the government. Because as a bank, am I going to give a riskier individual at 14% or loan it to the bank, which is risk-free at 14%?
Do you think the commercial banks are sabotaging, deliberately sabotaging the banking amendment law?
No, because
So where are they taking their money? Why are they not lending?
They are giving the government. So you should be asking the government, why are they taking this money and not letting the banks lend it out? So it's a question of asset allocation. I, as a bank, and I have shareholders to report to, I be asked, why are you giving riskier lenders at 14% and the default rate comes to 10%, or give the government and the default rate comes to 2%? It's a no-brainer to a bank CEO. He will never give an individual.
But the rate the government is offering is only 9%, whereas I'm offering you 14%.
No, 9% for a 1-year instrument. If you look at a 5-year instrument, it's at 12%. So that risk margin is what the bank's banking on.
So they would rather give their money to the bank?
Rather give it to the bank, to the government. Yeah.
So what would you advise the government?
Just repeal the law. Repeal the law, show the data. Credit is going down. The economy is going down, and the economy is run by credit. So
from the reactions of members of parliament, and I had an opportunity to talk to a number of them.
Yeah.
They said this is an all-go zone. Forget about it.
Okay. If you look at the analysis, there's no country which controlling the interest rates or controlling the free markets.
They wouldn't buy that.
Then we'll stick in this level until they see it.
We all go down the drain.
We go down the drain, and then once it comes,
you don't see like the banks will get to a certain point whereby they say, now, okay, we are not in the bank. We are not in the business of keeping money.
Yeah.
We're in the business of lending money.
Yeah.
I mean, we must find a way around, of lending this money to Kenyans. You don't see like they will get to such a point.
Then I will have one question. This 1.9 trillion the government is planning to collect, in all honesty, if you look at even the trends, they won't achieve the 100%. Where will they get the deficit? From borrowings. And who will they borrow? The banks. So the banks will always have a place to give the money. And it's the government. And the government will always be in demand of cash, regardless of where they are. They will always need cash.
So what magic do you think, or do you see CS Protich, pulling to Parliament, to convince them that we need to repeal this law, we need to do away with this?
I am a strong believer in data and showing the effects of certain laws and how they affect the economy. And if the data is presented in a way that the people can actually see, or the members of Parliament can actually see the effect, I believe they are rational and they will go there.
And I mean, you don't want to tell me that members of Parliament are not aware that the voters will be watching definitely, and they have their positions to protect.
Yeah.
So do you think they would want to take that route, and risk being voted out by the people who voted them in?
I believe it's up to them to also explain to their voters the effect of this thing and how it has affected them. Because even me as a voter, I'm not still getting the money. So is it helping me really? It's not.
So we're all banning?
Yeah, we're all banning. So let the banks lend and do their core duty as a bank, but in a free market.
Very well.
Yeah.
Because we will, at some point, we must come to the end of this interview. Yeah, there is, let me read one tweet here from a gentleman here. He says, is Benjamin Kira. He's saying, why is the government targeting alcohol?
Yeah.
Why is the government targeting alcohol?
People will always drink, people will always spend money on alcohol. So it's a sin tax. So you see, there's no substitute to it. You can't say, now I'll stop drinking and go to something else.
You don't think people will stop drinking?
No, they won't.
They'll continue to drink?
They'll continue to drink.
Do you drink?
Maybe drink less. Yes, I do.
You drink?
Yeah.
You love your bottle?
I still have my bottle.
Will you continue to drink?
Yes, I will.
Regardless of how much it costs?
How much it costs. I'll still have a drink once in a while. And that's how the world runs. It's a sin tax. It's for example, you see, if they tax ugali to a certain level where people cannot afford it, they'll switch to something else. Maybe they'll switch to rice or whatever alternative they'll be there. There's no alternative to alcohol. So people will still drink.
So Benjamin, You have your answer. You have your answer there. People will definitely continue to drink, regardless of how much the government tax alcohol. So, your final thoughts. Generally, you know, when you look at whatever CS Rotich presented in Parliament, what are your refined thoughts on it?
I believe the government is in all honesty trying to grow the economy and make Kenya a hub, a South African hub for investment. However, I believe it needs to be realistic in terms of how you're funding it, and you need to set the base towards funding the budget. If you're not able to collect a previous budget revenues, also the other previous budget revenues, and you keep on increasing it, and the measures still don't work, you need to rethink and come up with a better way, and also address that particular issue. Because I believe the government focuses more on where the money is being allocated. They never focus on whether it's actually achievable to raise such money. So I believe they should change the tact towards that, convince us how they will raise the money, and we will be at a better position.
Very well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed, John, for joining us here, and of course for sharing us with your insights.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Well, let's move on. And while Kenya was presenting 3.07 trillion shillings budget, other East African Community member states, including Uganda, Rwanda and Tanzania, were also doing the same, a tradition that dates back to 11 years ago. Uganda's budget amounted to about 800 billion shillings, while Rwanda's and Tanzanians were 281 billion shillings and 1.4 trillion shillings, respectively.
Uganda's Finance Minister Matthias Kasaija presented an 800 billion shillings budget, while his Rwanda and Tanzanian counterparts presented a 281 billion shillings and a 1.3 trillion shillings budget, respectively. Going with this year's Industrialization for Job Creation and Shared Prosperity East African theme, the Ugandan Treasury provided 1.7 billion shillings in the next financial year for the Youth Livelihood Program to fund over 5,000 youth enterprises and benefiting 61,000 youth. Women were allocated 1.05 billion shillings to support their enterprises. The Ugandan government is also keen on adding 783 megawatts to the national grid over the next 2 years in an effort to provide cheap energy for manufacturing. The minister says they have allocated 16.4 billion shillings to cater for maintenance of national, district, urban and community roads. The Tanzanian budget, on the other hand, seeks to increase manufacturing, with Tanzanian government lowering corporate tax from 30% to 20% for 5 years on new investments in pharmaceutical manufacturing and leather processing. Tanzania also hiked its tariff on imported crude palm oil for 1 year by 25% to boost its domestic production. However, Tanzania lowered its import duty for consumption sugar from 100% to 35% to cover existing consumption gap. Edible oil, safety matches, iron products, chewing gums, sweets, chocolates, tomato sauce, meat, sausages, biscuits and mineral water taxes were increased. In Rwanda, Finance Minister Dr. Uzel Ndagijimana said the government expects to finance 67% of the 2018-2019 budget through domestic resources, 16% through loans, and expects 16% to come from grants. In this financial year, Rwanda will prioritize the completion of ongoing projects, with domestically financed development projects expenditure set to increase by 7.6 billion shillings from 55 billion shillings in the 2017-2018 financial year, revised budgets to 3.8 billion shillings in 2018-2019.
On matters budget, what transpired in the sporting arena? Well, the government is now raiding gambling and gaming lovers to finance sporting activity in the country. In the 2018-2019 budget estimates, Treasury is proposing to tax betting and gaming firms, and the money to be realized will be used to scale up sporting activities in the country.
In a bid to improve the standards of sports in the country, Treasury is proposing a number of measures in the next financial year to mop up funds for the sector. Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich said the government will improve funding for sports in the country through creation of a kitty that will be financed by taxes from betting and gaming. He said the government has allocated 200 million shillings for the construction of the National Sports Academy in a bid to identify and nurture talent, and also 300 million shillings for the construction of an ultra-modern library.
Sports, culture and arts. I have allocated 200 million for construction of Sports Academy, 300 million for the construction of ultra-modern National Library. Funding for sports, culture and arts will be enhanced significantly with the creation of the new fund that will receive money from the taxation of betting and gaming.
CS proposed withholding tax of gambling winners and the same be used for development of sports and other social amenities in the country.
Well, of course, a lot has happened today in the country, but of course for the World Cup lovers, definitely you do realize today was the kickoff, and the 2018 World Cup opened in spectacular fashion as Russia defied their recent poor form to smash 5 past Saudi Arabia and record the biggest win by the host nation in the opening game of a World Cup.